And I just added you with the other one that somebody wrote up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday night talking Miami football here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. We got Cam Underwood, as usual, on the line from State of the U to break down another win for the Canes as they head down the home stretch looking for an ACC Coastal Division championship. Is that how they do it, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, we hit them in the mouth. We fight. It's just like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. If you are of the same or similar chronology as me, where you remember that game,
I'm right there with you.
I barely remember that. So yeah, some of you young whippersnappers don't know what we're talking about, but go look it up. It was fun.
Oh, I had a set. I had them. Oh yeah, tremendous. You hit the kid, boom. There went the chin, went straight up. All right. Yeah. Miami, a winner over Louisville, now 6-4 on the season. We invite you to bring your comments and questions to the live chat, and I will feed as many as I possibly can, the quality variety, to Cam as we march through the next hour. And we are in the midst of November, and it hasn't looked pretty at times, but here we are with Miami still a chance to win the ACC Coastal Division. Cam, in regards to the Louisville game, that's not a great opponent, but it's a much improved opponent that beat Virginia just the week earlier, that put 62 points on a Wake Forest team that is currently 7-2. Is that the best complete start to finish Miami performance this year?
Probably, and it wasn't even that great, really. I don't know. I know that we lost that game, but that Florida game was pretty complete. I mean, I know that the offensive line were turnstiles in that game, so I'm not calling any game perfect. And Miami gave up 500 yards to Louisville. Could have been more points. You had an interception in the end zone, a fumbled punt by the Cardinals and things. So it was one of the more complete games. And obviously, just their defense is Swiss cheese. And that's what we said, last week. And Jaron Williams proved that time and time again because, wait, hold on. Yeah, he just threw another touchdown pass right now because, I mean, it was that kind of a day for him. I mean, he had, 6 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns consecutively. He had 3 touchdowns and 4 throws at one point in the second quarter. Man was just on fire. Miami did play a good, solid game, obviously on senior day, homecoming, and with recruiting visits, both official and unofficial, going on in that game. So, there were still things that could use some improvement. A couple blown coverages, some missed tackles. It all, we talked before, and I mean, other people have, even more learned people than I, and I try to read as much as I possibly can and integrate that into my brain. But, other football analysts and people who are really integral on the, on the X's and O's side of things are saying Louisville is a team that runs outside zone more than anybody else and better than anybody else in the country. And some of those plays Miami looked like they were prepared for, and other times, I mean, just fish without water. Just they had no idea what was going on. So, it was one of the better games that we played, obviously putting out 52, tying an ACC, a Miami record against an ACC opponent. Is a really good performance. Record-breaking touchdown performance from your quarterback was great. D. Wiggins played well. DJ Dowse played well. Michael Pinckney was linebacker of the week in the ACC for his strong play. 14 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. All kinds of really good things. 3 turnovers. But yeah, the kind of yardage you gave up, you let them hold the ball a lot. But then again, Miami scored really fast in this game. I think there was only one drive where they scored that was like over 3.5 minutes. It was just zip, zap, zoom down the field against them. So it was one of the better games Miami's played this year. It really showed that Miami is the team that I was expecting to see throughout this season. When we lost to, Virginia Tech or Georgia Tech, the Miami we saw against Louisville, that was the one that was inside of my brain. So it is a step in the right direction, but it's not perfect.
Folks, notice the debut of the Miami green on the banners today.
Yeah,
the official Miami green. I go with the orange because it's typically more associated with the Canes, but I went with the green and looked up the color code for the green, and it's a nice little look. It's a very regal, bold forest green of sorts, more so than I expected. Looks good. Miami Moneyball, you go right there to MiamiMoneyball.com, Canes fans, and you predict the stats for the next Miami game. Of course, is going to be in 2 weeks, a week from Saturday against FIU, but you've got the Dolphins, the Canes, the Gators, and the Noles, and you can jump on there and play for prizes and test your football knowledge and your ability to predict statistics during those particular games at MiamiMoneyball.com. A guy came Underwood on the line from State of the U talking Miami football, but the Canes coming off a 52-point effort. What is the next best offensive scoring output for this season for this team against a Power 5 team?
That's an answer I don't have. If you hold on,
I don't either, and I'm scrambling to find it. But this 52 stands out.
Yeah, I just looked on
nowhere close to that.
CFB stats. It's the 35 in the loss to Virginia Tech.
Okay, 42-35.
Yeah,
okay.
That would be.
There it is.
Yeah, that's the only other time that we've scored more than 30 against FBS team. You had 25 in North Carolina, 20 against Florida, yada, 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 21 against Georgia Tech, trash. But yeah, so it would be 35 in a loss other than this one. So yeah, this was a little bit of an outlier. But then again, you had quarterback had a, Miami record 6 touchdowns, tied the ACC record for touchdowns thrown in a game. So a little bit of an outlier. But I mean, yeah, Louisville's defense, none too good.
We're only 5 weeks from tonight from the first early National Signing Day. So
Yikes.
Pam will certainly give us a rundown on recruiting. So leave your comments and questions in the live chat as well as we head toward one non-conference game and then the finale against Duke, which could be mighty critical to the ACC Coastal Division, as I will try to sort through the standings and give us a look. And you can go to stateoftheu.com as well to get your rundown on the way the standings stack up and the tie-breaking process and what Miami needs to do to provide themselves a chance of winning this thing in what is a muddy mess there in the ACC Coastal Division. And we pretty much knew that if Miami didn't take off and play to their max, that this is what we were going to get. And this is what we've gotten almost every year in the ACC Coastal for a number of years. And here we are again in 2019. So for the neutral guy that just likes chaos and loves the computations at the end of seasons, like when you watch the last couple of days of the Major League Baseball seasons and teams are getting eliminated and what's the magic number, I love that stuff. I love it. I want as many ties as possible. I want extra playoff games that are added to the wild card games where a team has to play a final Sunday and win of the regular season. Then they got to go travel to play a tiebreaker game on Monday. Then they got to go play the wild card game on Tuesday. I love that stuff. Final 4:00 games on an NFL Sunday, week 17, and all the computations of, well, they got to win, but they got to win by 25. And I love that stuff. I get into that stuff. So I'm going to dive into this article on State of the U, breaking down the ACC Coastal.
Yeah, I mean, there's other articles too. So, I know they're diving into that one right now, but everybody else, or even Mark later, there's plenty of good stuff there. So, come on over.
What impressed you most about the effort against Louisville? Because again, there's a decided talent disparity, but Louisville had made tons of progress and again played 2 teams that were 2 of the better teams in the conference just in the last few weeks and beat them.
Yeah, just coming out early, putting points on the board and not stopping, not giving them really a chance to get back into the game. Excuse me. And then you hit all your shots. Jaron Williams over the top. And again, I see that he's gotten so much better at, deep passing, which again just verifies for me earlier he was not healthy, because this Jaron Williams again that we saw, we're not seeing, or we did not see early for whatever reason. I honestly believe he was not healthy, because remember when I early talked about how the offense was more horizontal with him in there and more vertical with N'Kosi Perry because he wouldn't push the ball. Look, Jaron Williams stuck in there. He pushed that ball down the field. So I was very impressed by that. And also, obviously, the offensive line, so much better. So much better than it was to begin the year against Florida. And even last week, it just continues. Butch Berry's doing just yeoman's work there. And I was just talking with somebody on Twitter. Shout out to Andrew Vasquez. What's up, buddy? But the recruiting on offensive line, it could be better. And that's for darn sure. But the progress and development that's been seen across the board by the offensive line this year is really, really top notch. So I would say offensive line, and then that set up Jaron Williams for a big day. Obviously, the wide receivers helped him make plays. I would say that those things were the most outstanding kind of looking things. And then the defense, 40% of Louisville's plays were for no yards or for tackles for loss. So 2 out of every 5 plays was 0 or negative for them. The thing about it is 1 out of the other 3 plays in that 5 was an explosive play of 20 yards or more. So it was really feast or famine. So I like the fact that Miami still got up the field, still impacted and pressured and had a impact, negative forcing plays for Louisville. But yeah, the other side of that coin is when they were not putting Louisville in negative situations, there were just explosive plays from the Louisville offense.
Got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. We're here each and every Wednesday night talking Miami football. And, of course, the Canes have 2 games left at 6-4 overall. Does that make them 4-3 in the ACC Coastal?
Yes, sir.
In the ACC, I should say. All right, 4-3 in the ACC, so 5-3 may be good enough. We'll see how the tiebreakers play out. And, again, you can get the whole breakdown at State of the U.
Hold on. I don't think that. Yeah. Okay. That is. Oh, that's right. Because yeah. So, 4-3 in the ACC. You are correct. My bad.
All right. Does anybody have any good questions or topics? If before I get to those, why don't we line you up with just an overall update on the recruiting scene with, again, 5 weeks to National Signing Day.
Yeah, I need to write a class breakdown, but those have been kind of few and far between this year because there just hasn't been much going on. You set the majority of the class early, and then there's not been much movement. But I think that that's about to change coming up now. Obviously, the big news is Justin Flo, 5-star linebacker, top 5 player in the country, number 1 linebacker in the country, top 5 overall player, took his official visit to Miami last weekend, and he had glowing remarks for his time there. Obviously, it was his first official visit, so there's other visits to be taken, especially to his presumed leaders of Clemson this upcoming weekend. So that is a little unsettling, but Miami is not – you're not basing everything off of going after Justin Flo. And I did see some people – what up, Dennis Wilson? Oh, yeah, sorry, what up, though? That's a typical Detroit greeting for you guys. Justin Flo would be the cherry on top. And I know that he would be like, everything – he's so good that he would impact this team and this roster in such a massive way. But Miami already has 3 linebackers committed. You already offered the Green kid who was or is committed to Florida State. You've already offered a couple other guys, Ruben Hippolyte, who's a local kid that we wrote about previously and things like that. There are other options out there. So if Miami wants to go get a 4th linebacker, there are ways to go with that. None of them are as good as Justin Flo, though. So, I mean, there was somebody on Twitter, Mitch Purdue, his name was Canes Takes now because his other account got squashed. But he's saying, Flo or somebody in his camp told Miami that he's not coming. So, go elsewhere. I have not heard that. I would not necessarily be surprised by that. But, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And you got the kid on campus. It's his second time down here. His family does come down here on vacations and everything. You're selling something a little bit different. And I know that the season was not great and everything, but I'm willing to stick it out for a little bit longer for a player of that caliber, me, myself, personally. Now, if that, is true that he's already said that or told the staff he's not coming, then clearly, yeah, you move on. But I don't have that knowledge. I associate with Mitch on Twitter enough, but I don't know who he talked to or anything, so I can't say with any veracity whether that's true or not. But I would say still stick it out for another couple of weeks. And Manny Diaz has not visited Justin Flo yet in home, so I know that Justin Flo is going to sign early. So hey, yeah, take a shot. Jalen Harrell, local guy, Champagnat Catholic. He also was on an official visit this past weekend. Had really great things to say, him and his parents and everything from his time there. I think that Miami is probably going to be the pick for him, which would be great for a kid who's 6'2", 180, and probably has a frame to be up around 200 pounds and pretty chiseled. Very good player. Was formerly committed to Florida State in the secondary, so that's a guy who's good. Somebody I saw the question was asking about Jaden Francois. Jaden Francois is going, he's a 2-time commit, which means he's a 2-time decommit from Miami as well. But he has scheduled a few official visits, and one of them is to the University of Miami. That's going to be on the big recruiting weekend in 4 weeks, which is the week before national signing or early signing period. So that's basically when all the recruits or all the commits, the long-term commits, are coming down that weekend, the December 13th weekend or whatever. So, we'll see what happens. I know that some people are saying they wouldn't take Jaden Francois back in this class since he's been in and out twice. Jaden Francois apparently is like trying to tell Miami, like, I'm still committed, but I'm looking around and everything. But Miami's like, nah, buddy, you're not committed. So, a spot might not be guaranteed to you. Is he a player who can play here? Yes. Would I end up taking him in this class? Sure. Are you saying to yourself, but Cam, that probably means that he would leave in the transfer portal anyway down the line? Look, if a player is going to leave, a player is going to leave. But I want the best players possible. So if you have a spot for Jalen Harrell and you have a spot for Jaden Francois, give me them both. Now, if I have to choose between them, that gets a little bit more dicey. Just because, Jalen Harrell is a bigger physical guy. So you think, okay, maybe you want that dude who's a little bit bigger. Jaden Francois tied the South Florida record, or Dade County record, with 12 interceptions as a junior when he was playing corner. But, he has some coverage ability, obviously, but he's probably going to kick inside to safety at this level. So there's things like that are going on. And Miami is really just, shooting their shot with so many different guys. Marlon Martinez is a LSU commit offensive lineman from St. Thomas. He's a guy who came in for unofficial. Marcus Dumerville from St. Thomas, 4-star offensive tackle. He came in for unofficial for the game last weekend. He's not coming to Miami, though, so I wouldn't even, entertain that thought, just because I don't think he's ever been slotted to come to Miami. So there's a lot going on. Jalen Knighton, he's been around. He's going to take an official visit later to Miami. He decommitted from Florida State after they fired Willie Taggart. There's a bunch of guys. Hey, I would even like to see Miami take a run at a guy like a Darren Turner from Memphis, who's committed to Arkansas, who just decommitted today. That's a 4-star wide receiver at, was he 6'4", 6'5"? Now, I mean, if he wants in, maybe we can talk about it. But apparently there's other guys around at wide receiver. Douglas Emilien from American Heritage, Daslin Worsham from Alabama, who was formerly committed to Alabama, who already took an official visit to Miami earlier in the summer. I mean, there are options. So, the board is expanding a little bit in some places because obviously you have to find the guys that you want. And if you're going to miss out on certain guys, that means you got to expand the board and look at other places. So that's a conversation I was having with Andrew Vasquez on Twitter as well. But yeah, there's a lot of things ongoing. So we'll see what happens.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. This is our Miami Hurricanes live show each and every Wednesday night with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Please join him and the rest of the staff over on SB Nation. I would like to clarify something about the live chat, because we typically, as we get more and more people on here, and that's a good thing, we have some people that aren't necessarily welcome. Sometimes that's because of legitimate reasons. Other times it's not. So there's one particular person who's being singled out. I want to let everyone know that I will not tolerate any type of abuse in regards to gender, race, religion, any of those type issues, personal attacks in any way. But if somebody comes on here and just says Miami sucks and I hate Miami and they're going to lose every game, I'm not kicking that person out. Now, if I find something legitimate, absolutely, absolutely. But if it's just harmless trash talking, I'm not going to boot that person. But certainly, if I see anything of that sort, absolutely gone out of here. There's no place for any of that. So thank you so much for policing the live chat as best you can, because it's difficult for me to do it with everything else that we've got going on. All right, Cam. FIU comes up in 10 days. I know that we'll do more on that game, of course, next week. That's a game that's, I don't want to say it's not in doubt. Those upsets are pulled off across the country a handful of times or so each and every season. We've seen close to 10 games this season as 20-plus point underdogs teams beat other teams straight up. So it's possible. It's not a complete lock, but it's certainly a huge favorite on the side of Miami. But what's going to make you feel better about the Canes? What do you want to see as the continued progression toward the finale and what could be an enormous game against Duke.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Miami was a 3-touchdown favorite against Georgia Tech. So there you go. So if you're thinking, oh, what game were you talking about? That one right there. I just want to see a beatdown. Miami is a bigger, better, faster team. And FIU should not really present much of an issue. It might be close for a quarter because, the teams are trying to figure each other out. So you're trying to figure out, okay, where can we take advantage of them on, defense and offense and, whatever. But I don't want it to be close. It should not be close. I know that those guys are going to play on emotion early. There's a lot of South Florida guys, so guys who Miami passed over. Maurice Alexander, he was the Dade County leader in passing as a senior, but Miami did not recruit him because he's a 5'11" quarterback. So he ended up going to FIU. He played quarterback, and now he plays wide receiver. You think he doesn't want to put it to Miami? You have Dalvin Cook's younger brother, Anthony Jones, who Miami kind of gave a cup of coffee but decided, we're not going to go that route in recruiting him. You think he doesn't want to stick it to Miami like his brother did at Florida State for years and years and years? You know what I mean? So honestly, I just want to see the same Miami that we've seen these last couple of weeks. That's the Miami I want to see take the field at Marlins Park, which was built on the site where the Orange Bowl once stood, and play like those Hurricanes that won 58 in a row. Play like those teams that, just like Lee Green says, the offense looked like the 0-1 team. I want to see a game like that where you remove all doubt from the beginning, because there's no reason that FIU should be within 4 touchdowns of Miami. Period, point blank, end of story. And that's what I want to see.
We've got more recruiting talk coming in from our guy, JT Sounds, who's asking about Jalen Knighton. Mm-hmm. And also, Cam, you see the comments each and every week regarding Lorenzo Lingard and people's concern about him leaving campus.
I will address them in reverse order. Lorenzo Lingard, I think that he's going to stay. I think that he has all the reasons in the world to stay. He was redshirting here again. If he wanted to leave and get a new start somewhere else, he could have left already. I think that there's a role for him. He is a physical freak still. He's just not necessarily 100% healthy. And as someone who had a catastrophic ankle injury, who was in a cast, not even a walking cast, a cast for 4.5 months, I had to relearn how to walk. I had to rebuild my calf muscle because it completely atrophied because I could not dorsiflect my ankle. I understand the mental side of trying to get back into any kind of athletics. And look, I was a halfway decent level athlete with one low major or low level basketball offer. And it was a mental thing for me. It still is sometimes with my ankle. I understand where Lorenzo Lingard's coming from, where his mentality is just like, I don't trust it. You know what I mean? It's like Booby Miles in, Friday Night Lights. When you think about that cut, when you think about that thing, instead of just doing it innately, that's when you're not 100% there. Excuse me. And that's where Lingard is. So he's going to take extra time to get back right. So I think it'll be okay. And I think that he's going to stay, honestly and truly. Now, getting to the Jalen Knighton question, Miami wants two running backs in this class. We've talked about this for years and years, about how in certain years Miami needs 2 running backs, in the class. If you look back to, what was that, 2015, 16, 17, 18, and gone. Yeah, so 16 class. When you had 4 running backs committed, Jordan Scarlett and Dexter Williams and Mark Walton and the other kid who's at USF now. Oh, God. Oh, no. Jordan something?
I'm going to look it up.
With a weird name. It has like an extra
R.
I
most likely know who it is once I see the name.
It's number 2, I think. USF, running back. Oh, God. Cronkite. There it is.
Oh, that went to Florida.
Yeah, but he's at USF now.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. But you had 4 of those guys in that class, and that was a class where Miami needed 2 running backs. How many did you get? 1. The next year, you have a couple guys committed. Who did you get? 1. Like all these years, you get 1 running back, but you're going to need guys. So at this point, honestly, you're recruiting over Robert Burns. Sorry. That's just what it is. DJ Dallas, running back, the shelf life is short. So I love DJ Dallas. He's probably one of my favorite players on this team. I hope for him. I hope for me that he stays, but I hope for him that he goes to the NFL. If he does, then you got Cam Harris and then a Lorenzo Lingard who's still recovering mentally and physically from a knee injury, and then a Robert Burns who you're probably going to try to recruit over. So you have Donald Chaney who you've recruited over him, but now you need to add another weapon. So you would like to get a Jalen Knighton. I think Henry Parrish from Columbus, either one of those guys. And I get that they're a little bit different. We can go either way, and be good with that. We'll see. I think that Knighton was really shook by Florida State firing Willie Taggart. He said, that's who he wanted to play for, not the team, the coach. He wanted to be the next one up there and, play for him and yada, yada, yada. So I think it's going to take a while to really see which way Jalen Knighton's going. I would love it if he came to Miami, though. That would be wonderful. Fantastic.
Talking Miami football, Cam Underwood from State of the U, of course, on Wednesday night here each and every week. We might have a programming change, so stay tuned for the notification, and we are figuring things out in regards to schedules coming up for the next several weeks and months. Bo Brownlow asking about the staff of Manny Diaz and if you see any shakeups or changes coming after the season's over.
I don't think that Manny's going to get rid of anybody, if that's what you're asking. I think that most coaches are looking to be upwardly mobile. So if you get somebody who gets a better job offer elsewhere, you could see that. Maybe Taylor Stubblefield, and I only say that because he has been quite nomadic in his coaching career, where 2 years is literally the longest tenure he's ever had at a school. So that's a guy who maybe set the foundation here and then goes somewhere else. Maybe he stays for a second year, and then we see after the 2020 season, is he going to all of a sudden now have his longest tenured spot anywhere? So that's a guy, because he's bounced around, I would say maybe you look at him. Otherwise, Dan Enos is not going anywhere. That means Butch Berry's not going anywhere because they've worked together before. And obviously you need an offensive line to run an offense. So you have the offensive line coach from the offensive coordinator. Eric Hickson at running backs coach. The running backs are playing really well. So that's great. Not necessarily my favorite hire personally, but hey, he's doing the job. Stephen Fields is a tight ends coach. Tight ends are playing well, and he's one of the better recruiters on the staff. That's great. Manny Diaz is not going anywhere. Blake Baker's not going anywhere. Ephraim Bonda, maybe if he stepped up and got a defensive coordinator job somewhere, but do you really want to go for that now? Maybe you stick it out another year. You see the development of your guys at safety, maybe get a semifinalist nomination for the Broyles Award in 2020. Then you spin that towards a defensive coordinator spot. Maybe the same thing like Jonathan Patke, although he's a young up and comer in the ranks, he is widely regarded. So maybe he looks to get back or take a step up where he's a co-defensive coordinator somewhere or something like that. But and then Mike Rumph, I just don't think that he's going anywhere else. So that's the short story long to say I don't think that there's going to be any changes. And Todd Stroud, he's another guy who's been well-traveled, but he's coached for 33 years. So him having as many stops as Taylor Stubblefield with 3 times the career and as a coach as Taylor Stubblefield, that's indicative of how much Stubblefield has moved around. So yeah, if I was going to look at anybody, I would say Stroud or Stubblefield, just because they've moved around the most in their coaching careers. But as it stands now, things are starting to come together. So I don't see a reason to break the band up right now.
Marcus Fleming is the 43rd rated wide receiver in the country, according to the 247 composite, the 42nd rated player in the state of Florida out of Northwestern High School, Maryland, Florida State, Georgia Tech on his board, including Miami. And your thoughts about the possibilities of him staying at home?
I believe that he's going to stay at home. He's a speedster. He's one of the guys, he's the type of South Florida kid who's a 3-star, 4-star borderline guy. But you always, people want to say South Florida 3 stars are probably 4 stars or 5 stars elsewhere. That's a Marcus Fleming. Kid can fly. Kid can fly. So if you're talking about, Miami didn't take Tutu Atwell a couple years ago because he wanted to play quarterback, even though everybody knew he's going to play wide receiver. Tutu Atwell used to throw passes to Marcus Fleming. Now Marcus Fleming wants to stay local and play literally, not around the corner like Norland, but Northwestern is off of 79th. So it's not far from 79th up to 199th there, 120 blocks to the stadium. That's not far at all, a few miles. So if he wants to stay local and play here, I'm all for it. He has a skill set to play here. He might not be a day one contributor. He might not be Amon Richards breaking the freshman receiving record, but I don't see any reason to move on from him. I know that there was talk earlier in the year that he might be wavering on his pledge to Miami. I have not heard anything like that recently. All of the intel that we have heard and has been reported is that he's pretty solid. So I hope that he stays solid because, again, he's a kid with good enough size at 5'10", 5'11", and, again, track speed, which guys have down here. So I'm good with it.
Okay, folks, understand that I get to as many questions and comments as I possibly can. You see them scrolling on the screen. There are hundreds and hundreds, and who knows what the count is by the time we record for 55 minutes. So please don't get offended and make comments. I'm typically, let's say, right now it's 8:33. I'm typically 5 to 6 minutes behind the chat. So don't get offended when I don't just immediately take your comment to the screen. And certainly if you provide the super chat contribution, we appreciate that. And I actually, StreamYard, the application that we use here along with YouTube, has added something this week where they light up so I can grab them, I can see them and find them much more easy. They just blended in with the rest of the comments before. So I will catch up with those, and I thank you so much for the contribution, including this one from Chuck Mo Beer. Mark and Cam, should Miami get a coach dedicated to special teams?
Special teams has been so much better this year. What are you talking about? John Packey, what? Look, and I know Bubba Baxa has not met expectations. I know that McKicken, Turner Davidson was great for one game, and then that all went away. Camden Price seems to be consistent. But punt returns, very good. Kickoff returns, very good. Punting, very good. Punt and kickoff coverage, very good. So, look, Miami, and I put this in the good, the bad, the ugly, the last couple of weeks. Miami has had hundreds of yards of hidden yardage advantage on field position. It was 266 against Florida State. It was like 185 against Louisville. It was another 185 or 200 yards the week before at Pittsburgh. Special team, I know that the kicking, the field goal place kicking part, I know that needs improvement. But if you look at special teams globally and you take everything into account, punting, punt coverage, kickoff coverage, and kickoffs as well, because Bubba Baxa still has a strong leg and he's kicking most of them out of the end zone, and punt return and kick return, Miami special teams is pretty darn good. So I would say, I know that there's the one thing, the place kicking, that's been very, very, very bad. I know. And it seems Camden Price is getting better. Look at everything and evaluate that again, because I think that Jonathan Packey is doing yeoman's work as special teams coordinator. Plus the fact, if you do that, you only have 10 assistants, right? So then who's doing double duty and coaching another? So you're going to have Manny Diaz now coach linebackers, and then, because you only get 10 assistants. So if you have one for special teams, then you have 9 for the other positions. So that means somebody's going to have to do double duty. Why? For what? And Packey is doing double duty because he has the outside linebacker, striker position, and special teams coordinator. But special teams coordinator by itself, then that puts a core defensive position that has to be coached by somebody who's now doing 2 positions. I don't like it. Leave it like it is. And Packey's doing a really good job with special teams this year.
So much appreciation here, believe me, for the contributions overall, the likes, the comments, sharing the videos, and subscribing as well. But Corey G, Mike Williams, Vernon Speaks Sports, also all contributing to the super chat. So thank you so much for that. And we'll keep you updated on our future schedule, which may change starting next week. So be in tune and locked in for that in particular. What do we have? What do we have? Anybody on the line with any good questions, folks? So let me come up with one.
Sorry about that.
No issues. What do we got? What do we got? Yeah, special. How do you talk about recruiting? This is the one position, and you just hit on it, that gets very little attention unless you are a hardcore recruiting guy, and which you are. And place kicking. Why do some of the best schools in the nation not come up with good place kicking? And then you see these group of 5 kickers, not on a regular basis, not that it's a descending scale or anything, from all over the place. And it would seem to me that the best schools would get the best kickers because it is so critical those couple times per year.
Yeah, and I think that it's just comfort, honestly. And some of the special teams coordinators or whoever has that position, because they usually have a secondary that is their secondary position. So it's who has the expertise, and then like the grad assistants who are there and things like that, and they just have better systems in some places. So yeah, I mean, it is. Sometimes people, you just pick where you pick. Am I going to go to Alabama as a punter? And remember a couple of years ago when like their punter didn't punt until like the 5th or 6th game? You know what I mean? Am I going to go there? And I mean, like, I'll win and get a ring, or am I going to go Mississippi State where I can maybe win 8 games, but I'm going to punt 3 times more? You know what I mean? So there is some of that. And, guys just develop later, and the way that the team runs their special teams. So you have like the rugby style punters, because Miami's gone to that with an Australian guy, as the punter. So like that is their scheme and paradigm, and just the way that they teach place kickers and things like that. So, and then sometimes you just get guys who don't necessarily have the goods. Bubba Baxa was a top recruit coming out of high school as a kicker. His percentage, I think, in his career now is down in the 60s, at the college level, approaching 50%, I want to say, at place kicking. That's not good enough. And that, unfortunately, sometimes happens. And then, sometimes teams will also not allocate scholarships to kickers and then just have walk-ons and then hope that they work. And then maybe, down the line, you earn a scholarship for a year or 2 or something like that. So, yeah, it is the third phase of the game that sometimes does get overlooked. But kicking and punting is really important. And, Miami has obviously seen that. Zach Fiegels was quite mediocre at best as a punter. You upgrade that with Lewis Headley. Bubba Baxa, for having a strong leg that can kick it, 1.5 miles. His direction and aim was not necessarily where it needed to be either. So, yeah, sometimes things just unfortunately don't go the way that you would hope for them. But that's more of a spotlight on that position because you only play 5 or 6 snaps a game, but you're the guy at an integral engagement for those snaps, as opposed to, your Lorenzo Lingard, your Tavian Feaster, who was a 5-star, rated way higher than Travis Etienne at Clemson, didn't really do anything, and all of a sudden now he transfers out. So, it's just kind of the hit or miss nature of athletic development.
MiamiMoneyball.com. Check it out if you know the stats and know how to project stats. You can win a ton of prizes there at MiamiMoneyball.com. If you love the Florida teams, that means Florida, Florida State, Miami, and the Miami Dolphins. Jump in right there. Cam, whether your measuring period is going to be from week 1 to date, or you're going to go all the way back to the conclusion of 2018 to date, most improved players on this team, who has really stood out as, wow, this guy has really stepped up his game. He's just a better player.
I mean, well, you got to start with Gregory Rousseau, who's 2nd or 3rd in the nation with 12 sacks as redshirt freshman. I mean, he has to be in that conversation, just period. D. Wiggins is taking a big step forward. Jaron Williams is taking a big step forward. Gervin Hall is taking a big step forward. There's a lot of guys who have developed on this team and have really, just been a little, or just more, just better, just gotten better. We talk about with Jaron Williams how the game is starting to slow down for him. He's like Neo at the end of the first Matrix, where he's starting to be able to see the code and everything, as evidenced by last week. Because Louisville did try some stuff, but it didn't work because he saw it and was able to rely on his offensive line, have the time, and even when he really didn't have time, just stay in there and say, "I'm going to take this one in the chin, but I'm going to put that ball right where I want it." So that's been pretty great. But yeah, I would say that those guys are probably the ones individually who are the most improved that I've seen over the course of this year. And then just collectively, the offensive line as a unit has just taken such a big step forward. And again, I like to say this because I think it was just such a great point that my colleague Bud Elliott made about Florida State with their offensive line. Said going from atrocious to bad is an improvement. And everyone wants to go from atrocious to great. And I think that Miami went from bad to mediocre throughout the course of this year. And that's a big step forward. And I know that, the last couple of guys, couple of games have been objectively good performance from the offensive line. So if you can go from bad to mediocre to pushing good in the course of a year, so like 2 levels up from where you were, that's pretty great. I've seen the question a couple of times, so I'm going to answer it. Xavier Restrepo is going to play offense. The end. He's going to be a slot receiver here. That's the thing that he does best at the high school level. I know that he does play both ways at the high school level, because when you're in high school, you play both ways, especially, if you're one of the better players and you're not a quarterback, So yeah, he does play offense and defense for Deerfield Beach, but Xavier Restrepo is recruited here to be a slot receiver, and that's what he's going to do.
Dan Enos, of course, has ties to Arkansas. Chad Morris was fired last week. There would be a connection there, but Dan Enos, I don't think, would have built a resume over his current stop to warrant that type of job, but who knows?
Yeah, he was offensive coordinator there, but let's be perfectly honest. You're leaving Miami with the way that Miami looks and the talent that Miami has and the trajectory that Miami could be on to go to Arkansas. I know that he had a great year as a coordinator at Arkansas with a senior quarterback, but now you got a redshirt freshman quarterback who's dealing. Your backup quarterback, N'Kosi Perry, is incredibly talented and athletically gifted. So if any injury or performance decline should befall Jaron Williams, you have a guy that's ready-made, boom, to step in and put up numbers. You know what I mean? And you're going to leave that situation for Arkansas, which is objectively a tire fire, dumpster fire. I'm in a picks league where we pick just straight up every week the winners of any game featuring an ACC or SEC team. And weeks ago, actually long time ago, when they lost to San Jose State in week 2 at home, I wrote my commissioner, a good friend of mine, and I said, D-Ham, #never Arkansas, because I'm not picking them to win again. And I didn't. And everybody was like, oh, you picked Western Kentucky? Hell yeah, I picked Western Kentucky. What do you mean? Like, Western Kentucky almost hung 70 on them boys. Like, yeah, but you're going to, I don't see where Enos would leave here for that. If he wants to be a head coach, I think that if he stays in Miami for 2 or 3 years and continues the development with Jaron Williams specifically and just really relies on his QB guru reputation, that he can maybe, Dan Enos, find a good job. But leaving here to go to Arkansas right now, that's as the head coach, that's a demotion. It's not even a lateral move. And you would think, well, coordinator to head coach, that would be at least a lateral, no, that's a step down for where they are right now. Sorry, it is.
Offensive coordinator at Miami to head coach at Arkansas is a demotion.
Yeah, that's a step down. Where they are right now.
Where they are right now, most teams are in that position that are looking for head coaches. That is typically the result of having a coaching vacancy, is that you're in a bad place.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't necessarily I think that Arkansas is so dysfunctional currently that it would not necessarily entice Dan Enos to leave.
Well, I'm not close enough to the situation to know the athletic director, the administration, the resources, or anything like that. But I know that they play obviously in the SEC, and they have a proud football tradition. And
True.
as of 3 or 4 years ago, they were going to bowl games under Brett Bielema. And as of 2010, 11, 12, they were finishing top 5 or 10 in the nation 2 consecutive years.
True.
So they can do it. It
Oh,
can
no,
be
no, no,
done
no.
there.
No, they can. I'm not saying that they cannot. I'm not controverting anything you say. They do have a strong history, but currently, it's not that. That's all.
It's awful.
Oh yeah, that's my point.
They've lost to San Jose State, Western Kentucky by lopsided scores. Colorado State in the last year, North Texas. They don't do that in the SEC. I don't care.
I mean, they got blown out in those games too. Like, right. That's
awful.
Right. Yeah.
But if you get the job, you got a big cushion to be able to turn that around?
Do you?
I would think so, that you've got some buffer there.
Look, Chad Morris got fired 22 games in. But I mean, Chad Morris was also 4-18. But
Chad Morris didn't take over a dumpster fire and continue the dumpster fire. He took over a program that had a bad season under Bielema. Right. They were actually elevating each season under Bielema. He had one down season. They got rid of him. They bring in Chad Morris, and
the bottom fell out. Yeah, that was bad.
All right. We're talking Miami football, of course, here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So please be patient, but you've got to help us out here. In addition to the trade-off is we provide tremendous content here each and every day, but specifically with Cam each and every week talking Miami football. The trade-off is you like, you comment, you subscribe to the channel, and you share the videos out on social media. And, of course, provide us with great comments and questions. So where do we take this next, Cam? What's on your mind?
Somebody had a question.
Usually not out of questions, but I got to say.
No, somebody had a question about recruiting a couple of questions ago on the screen. No, not the Clemson one. About, 3 stars. Yeah, whatever. Shucks. Man. I'm usually so good at seeing them and just filing them away and getting to it, but I don't know.
I am scanning for them. That's about the most basic question you can ever be asked.
I mean, Miami football has gotten better over the course of this year, Sam Bell. So I would say every day at practice, that's when Miami football is going to be better, or has the opportunity to get there. Yeah.
Do you think Manny Diaz, this is a difficult question to really gauge if he's learned anything. Of course, he's learned something to the extent that you've seen it implemented, or if not, what would you want to see out of him and his staff next season where they were not up to the challenge this season?
Being prepared every week and being prepared at the beginning of games every single week, not taking anything for granted. And I know that the coaching staff, and again, I was a teacher for 15 years. I ran a choir program. I understand the fragile nature of the teenage psyche. I understand that consistency is very, very hard to get from people, but it needs to be there. You cannot have these letdowns. You cannot have a Georgia Tech game. You can't have it. You cannot have it. And it has happened in the last couple of weeks where Miami was as prepared as their opponent to start the game. So Bud Elliott, I went on his podcast a couple of weeks ago and he asked me about who I thought was going to manage halftime adjustments better, whether it would be Willie Taggart or Manny Diaz. And I said unequivocally Manny Diaz, because we've seen it as a head coach and as a coordinator. Things might not go well to begin with, but come halftime, things are going to change. You think about that Virginia game at home in 2017 when Jaquan Johnson had that interception return touchdown, when Kurt Benkert looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate for a half of football. You think about all these times when things have changed, and in a positive way for Miami, and that's great. My contention was I don't want it to get so bad that things need to change in such a drastic way to begin with. I want to come out and be and have the team ready to compete from the jump. I don't want to counter punch. I want to be the puncher. You know what I mean? I want to be that slugger. I want you get in the ring with me, and look, after that first round, you're going to go back to that corner and say, whew, boy, they hit hard. I don't want to be, that's somebody who's like, oh, I got hit a couple times. Now I'm going to try to fight back because I lost a 10-8 round in the first quarter, first half of the game. That's where I think we've seen development, but that's also where I think that needs to be consistent because, when Manny Diaz finally went back over there and started helping out with accountability or whatever on defense, things changed. But that kind of buy-in needs to be throughout the program and it needs to be consistent. And I don't want, because for years, even in the Mark Richt era, even in that 10-0 start to 2017, Miami still spotted teams' points, was behind, after the first quarter or close in the first half. And then after halftime, things got worked out and whatever. That's the thing that I want to see more than anything else. Because operationally, I think he's fine. Analytically, he's doing the things that the numbers say. But just that preparation, man, on the field. And then secondarily or, primarily, however you want to look at it, I think that closing and recruiting needs to improve. And I think that, being involved with so many blue chip guys, 5 stars, 4 stars and everything, getting them on campus, getting them to take visits, whether they're local guys, whether they're, national recruits like a Justin Flo or Darnell Washington, who I think is going to come down for an official visit before that early signing period and things like that. I love being engaged with those guys and having them interested in the University of Miami. I need those guys to start signing here again. So between the on-field of being prepared for every game and the off-field of closing on the better players available in the recruiting classes, those are the things where I think I would like to see improvement from Manny Diaz and the crew. And just really quickly, I see the question from Long Live the King on the screen. What do I think about Newell OL offer Trey Jones? I just saw that he got offered. I have not looked at film at all, so I have nothing that I can add because I haven't looked yet.
MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Please support our Miami offering here each and every Wednesday night with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Like, comment, share the video, subscribe, and contribute to the Super Chat. All right, I'm going to do a treetop look, maybe dive a little bit deeper into this ACC Coastal Division race. So basically, here's the deal. Virginia is 5-2. If they beat Virginia Tech, which they haven't done in 15 years. But if they do it this year, it's over. Virginia will win the ACC Coastal Division at 6-2.
And that's 2 weeks from that's the season finale. So there's time for that game.
Yep. So then you got the logjam. So Miami has the tiebreaker against Pitt, but they lose the tiebreaker against Virginia Tech and North Carolina. It is so bunched up that most likely, unless Virginia wins it out, we're going to see a 3-way tie because you've got Virginia Tech and Pitt at 3-2. You've got Miami at 4-3. You've got North Carolina at 3-3. I don't include Duke with 3 losses just because for this discussion, it includes Miami. Miami needs to beat Duke or it's not a discussion. Therefore, Duke's out under this scenario. This Thursday night, Pitt plays North Carolina. That's a huge game, of course, because basically what needs to happen for Miami here is they need Virginia Tech to beat Virginia, plain and simple. That has to happen. But Virginia Tech needs to lose another 2 games if there's a 2-way tie because Virginia Tech's 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to lose 1 more game than Miami if there's a 2-way tie. Now, if Miami can get them into a 3-way tie, it may break differently. But for Virginia Tech, they've got Georgia Tech, they've got Pitt and Virginia. And they will have beaten Virginia under this scenario or the whole discussion's null and void. So Virginia Tech has to lose to Georgia Tech and Pitt if there's a 2-way tie with Miami. Otherwise, Virginia Tech's going to go to the ACC division championship game. I would have never thought that 6 weeks ago. Otherwise, what Miami's hoping for is chaos and that Virginia Tech gets the win against Virginia, splits the other two, and there's a three-way tie with Pitt involved or North Carolina, and they win some kind of crazy tiebreaker. That's what basically has to happen.
Yeah. So you're rooting for Pittsburgh on Thursday night to give North Carolina another loss because we beat Pittsburgh. And then again,
maybe you are.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, it is, but you.
Probably,
I mean,
that does get them out of the way. But
right. But
Pitt
then
only has 2 losses.
Right. So then they're going to need to lose another game, but that's we'll see.
And one of Pitt's games against Virginia Tech, and you don't want Virginia Tech winning games.
Exactly. But except for the season finale against Virginia, which again they must win. That is the absolute requirement for even there to be a conversation there. So it's a convoluted mess. It's a spaghetti Western kind of situation. It's one of those choose your own adventure books where you read to page 8 and then go to 47 and then go back to 13, and it's all discombobulated. So that's a pretty good read on the situation. So well, I mean, Miami, first of all, does need to beat Duke in the season finale in a couple of weeks, and then obviously hope for a bunch of help because unfortunately losing those 2 games to the Tech teams, Miami was not able to help themselves earlier this year.
Virgilio Guma, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Thanks so much for contributing to the super chat, asking Cam. This is a pretty straight fire question, very general in regards to recruiting speed. Why don't we recruit pure speed like we did in the old days?
This question about Tutu Atwell is specific to him. It's not a general question.
Okay.
2 years ago, Miami signed 4 4-star recruits at wide receiver: D. Wiggins, Mark Pope, Marquez Izard, and Brian Hightower. 2 of them were All-Americans in Pope and Hightower. Izard, I think, was all Georgia first team all-state guy, and he was a bigger physical dude in that Anquan Bolden big slot role. And then D. Wiggins is a size speed guy who was a developmental guy who we thought 2-3 years down the line, and you see right now this is year 2, boom, done. Everybody was 6 feet or taller. Mark Pope has elite speed, so there's your speedster. It was not a Tutu Atwell or Brian Hightower question. That's you on the back end playing revisionist history and then saying, oh, well, it was one or the other. That was never the conversation. And through the majority of the recruiting process, Tutu Atwell was saying that he only wanted to have conversations about playing quarterback, and he's 5'7". That was not going to happen here. You know what I mean? And again, at some time, you have to make a value judgment and say, look, we got 4 4-star guys at wide receiver of different body types and skill sets. You got the big X, you got the big Z, you have a speed demon, and you have one of the bigger slots that you'll ever see. We have 4 different body types and 4 very good players, 2 All-Americans and 4 All-Staters. Where is the spot for Tutu Atwell there? Of those guys, who are you not taking? You might not take Marquez Izard because he's from Georgia and not local. So maybe that would have been the spot. Maybe, because Izard was the last one of those to commit. So if you want to talk about Tutu, that would be the comparison, not Brian Hightower, who was everybody's All-American. Brian Hightower had 88 catches for 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns as a sophomore at Calabasas High School. What are we talking about? That's a guy that you're not going to take? A guy who's at IMG Academy mossing everybody, jumping over dudes? Come on, no. Look, No, I hate these discussions because people want to play revisionist history. That was never the conversation. That was never the choice. It was never a one-to-one kind of thing there. It was not. So please stop with that. And I saw people, and I knew it, and I knew it. I saw you with that question about Chad Morris after 22 games because I got on here and I talked about Willie Taggart after 21 games. I'm not going to do it because it's not the same thing because Willie Taggart was almost 500. He had over double the wins.
He was at Florida State, though. And Chad Morris is at Arkansas against the SEC Western Division. But Chad Morris has to play Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Mississippi State.
That's my point. He was so much worse at his job and had more games than Willie Taggart. That's what I'm saying.
He had to play that schedule. Look at that schedule he had to play. No, you got to admit, he plays in the best division in college football.
And But but again, this is the same Arkansas who was recently doing so much better than that. So that means that you are the person, the steward of that job, who comes in and does it the worst, infinitely worse than anybody who's recently had that job, and you have a longer tenure than a guy at Florida State. Come on.
Longer by one game. They got fired just basically
no,
at the same time.
No, but one game matters because 1 week matters. It does.
I will agree that Arkansas is a more difficult job. They didn't have the roster that Florida State. So here's the pro Chad Morris versus Willie Taggart, is that they play the tougher schedule and the tougher division. So it has to be understood that they're probably not going to have as good a record, and they don't have as much talent on the roster. They've got like top 45 or 50 talent. Willie Taggart had more like top 15 talent. And Willie Taggart's teams looked very unprepared. But Willie Taggart's teams at least weren't losing to San Jose State, Colorado State, North Texas, Western Kentucky. That is,
thank you.
Take the bottom 3 teams in any of the Power 5 leagues, and they're not going to consistently lose to those teams.
But he was so
Morris. But I'm saying both arguments there.
All I'm saying is, it is clear to me that race was a factor. I'm not saying it was the only reason that Willie Taggart got gone. I know that there are objective reasons on performance, but then again, you also look at all these other coaches who happen to be Caucasian with records that are worse than Willie Taggart, who were still employed. Chad Morris is the first one to go. Look at Chip Kelly. Look at there are many other guys in similarly sized programs who are performing worse, who are still employed. That's all I'm saying.
This is going to be conjecture, which I almost never do, but this is how I see it. I don't believe that the Florida State administration would hire a black coach if they were inherently racist. But the people that raised the money to pay them off, to pull the power play to say, get rid of him. Yes, that core of people probably had that motivation to raise that money to say, get this done, get him out of here.
Right. And again, I'm not even saying that firing Willie Taggart did not have its merits, because it did. All I'm saying is that additional, and the reason he got gone quicker than anybody else in that position, was a factor of race. That's all. And it's not crazy to say that race was a factor in the decision-making process. And look, I'm not saying that there were 2 factors. There could have been 100 factors. But one of the ones on the list was the fact that he was black. That's all I'm saying.
Miami Hurricanes Live every Wednesday night. I have nothing more to say on it, because
I mean, I don't either. I'm good with it. We can never bring that up again.
But I don't believe it's completely substantiated. But what I just stated is what I truly believe happened. But I've got no way to necessarily back up that I believe that there was motivation, racial motivation. Unfortunately, I think it's a horrible thing. Racial motivation from the people that had the money to say, fire him.
Agreed.
We appreciate everybody's comments, questions, your engagement in the live chat. A lot of people sent me questions and comments that are specific to me to say, Mark, why don't you do this? Or why don't you look at that? I'm not going to be able to take these from the live chat. Copy and paste your question and take it and put it in one of the comments section in one of the videos, and then I can act upon it. Cam, we appreciate you stopping by and making this show what it is each and every week.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys. Again, just started co-hosting the Locked On Canes podcast, so please go follow that show. You can find it anywhere that you find podcasts. Me and my co-host, Fred Perdue. I'm always on Twitter at Underwood Sports. Whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, you can follow the website at The State of the U, and we're at thestateoftheu.com. And actually, since it's 5 weeks away from new signing or early signing period, I got to get cranked up on that sometime soon. So yeah, there we go. Come on over and fan with us, and then we'll be back. I don't know if it's going to be Wednesdays anymore, but I'll see you guys on here soon.
We'll see y'all later. No Ohio State show tonight. That's coming up tomorrow night, Thursday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see you then.